everyone. Hi, I'm Ashley. Welcome to PowerCat AI webinars. The topic for this one is extending Copilot Studio with Azure AI Foundry. And I'm going to be one of your hosts. And then we have our speaker for today, Robert, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Robert Standifer. I'm a Principal Program Manager in PowerCat, colleague of Ashley's. Super excited to be here today. Been lots of interesting stuff to talk about, so I really appreciate you coming today. I have made this presentation, I've slanted it way more toward the folks that haven't used AI Foundry and maybe don't even know what it is. So those of you who've used it with custom models and fine-tuned models and vector indexes and things, I hope you'll stick around because I'd love to hear your insights about where we should go with this and building a community around extending Copilot Studio agents with Foundry. So we're going to talk about why we're talking about extending agents. We'll go into what Azure AI Foundry and AI Services offers for extending your Copilot Studio agents. We'll go into a little bit about how you can use AI Foundry to extend your agents with a demo. And I'll cover a few key scenarios for extending agents with AI Foundry that are based on some real-world customer experiences. Okay. So first, let's just cover what Microsoft offers. There are many choices of tools to create agents. Here on the left side, on the no-code, you can build agents for Microsoft M365 Copilot with Agent Builder. There's actually some pretty amazing stuff there. Lots of interesting things coming out there, which would be a great webinar to have another time. Of course, Copilot Studio, our low-code environment for and SaaS solution for building powerful agents. And then as we drift toward the right side with ProCode, Copilot Studio, Azure AI Foundry, and Visual Studio. Now, the reason I talk about this here is both the level set, we're talking about primarily Copilot Studio, building agents with Copilot Studio, and then extending them with Azure AI Foundry. And I want to point out that while these different environments and platforms and tools might seem like they are mutually exclusive, they're not. You have choices of platforms and you have choices of tools. And extensibility means you can bring them together to accomplish the things that you're setting out to do. You don't have to hit a brick wall or fall off a cliff when you've reached the extent of the tool that you're using. There are other things that you can do, and there's more stuff coming. So the theme of this, the principle behind this is starting with Copilot Studio and extending with Azure AI, with AI Foundry and AI Services. We talk a lot about how Copilot Studio is the UI for AI, and there's so much that you can do out of the box with Copilot Studio. You can go really, really, really far with it. And sometimes you just, like in the movie Fast and the Furious, there's always that extra gear. Dominic Toretto is driving really fast, but he needs to go just a little bit faster, and there's that extra gear. And that extra gear is kind of what we're talking about today. And as a car guy, that always cracks me up because, it's going to go so fast. But anyway, so that's kind of that extra gear, that little bit of extra oomph. So why does this matter now? So those of you who are building Copilot Studio agents, they're delivering value. You're using Copilot Studio, you've got great success at your own company or the company that your customer. And it's not about making them work, it's about getting more value from them. Your agents are smart, but they can be smarter. Your Copilot Studio agents can do a lot, maybe everything you need right now, but maybe you want to just, like I said, add that little bit of extra oomph. You want to make them more powerful, but you don't want to start over. You don't want to switch to Foundry and start building agents with Foundry SDK. That might not be the right thing for you. You want to use your Copilot Studio agents and just add more to them. And you want those same agents that are delivering business value, but you want to get some smarter outcomes from them. So there are some signs that your Copilot Studio agent is ready for more. It's ready to be extended. And these are just 4 that I've collected from talking with customers and such, but it's not limited to these 4. You might have some. And if you want to share some in the chat, that would be really great too. But maybe users are asking questions of your agent that it used to be able to answer well, but as your users are getting more adept and knowing how to write prompts, getting better at prompt engineering, maybe your knowledge sources are somewhat limited. and your agent can't answer them well. Maybe it's limited by the model that your agent is using. You have document heavy scenarios. Now, this one is a kind of a favorite of mine because I have a strong background in enterprise content management and knowledge management, dealing with, in some cases, millions of documents. And so this is something I'm super interested in. But, we talk about document heavy might be hundreds of thousands of insurance policies or invoices in a company that has digitized through their digital transformation over the past 20 years. And sometimes they need much, much deeper analysis. In fact, one of the folks that came off mute and talked about document processing as an example of that. And you might be in an industry where you have specific needs that are beyond the general knowledge of an LLM, general knowledge of the model that's available to you in Copilot Studio. Thinking about financial services, healthcare, manufacturing. There are very specific needs in those industries, whether they're going over documents or, in the case of the legal industry, a particular type of analysis. One of the coolest jobs I had at Microsoft in my career here was I was a patent engineer, and that meant I got to read patents that we filed with the USPTO and looked for, what are these claims good and things like that. And I also read other patents for when we were looking for infringement. So I spent a lot of time and leveraged all of my knowledge of compilers and all the things, that I built expertise over my career. Well, that's kind of that specialized knowledge. So I could help maybe fine tune a model for doing patent analysis specifically for Microsoft. And that's specific in both in the legal industry and in the industries in which we're filing patents. So just as a quick example. And then there are integration demands with specialized data sources, and the specialized data sources could be something that you're hosting that's in your hybrid cloud or SAP or all the different third party from Microsoft, the non-Microsoft services and Microsoft services as well, where you've got specialized data sources that you need to connect to your agent. So let's talk about Foundry. So if you're not familiar with Foundry, it's a suite of Azure AI services and tools for building advanced AI solutions at scale. And it comprises several different pieces. I like to think of Foundry, I shorten it to Foundry. I hope the Foundry team is listening, doesn't mind. But it pulls together a bunch of different features and capabilities that you need for building AI and wraps it around Azure. So it goes and builds Azure or creates Azure services for you behind the scenes to make building your AI solutions on Azure easier. And so starting at the top, it has this unified model catalog. At the core of Foundry is that model catalog. It's a centralized repository that stores and manages a wide range of AI models, like Azure OpenAI and models as a service. And those models include foundational models, which are pre-trained models like Azure OpenAI for general purpose reasoning and content generation. GPT is probably the most famous one of that. Open source models, popular community-driven models that allow greater customization and control. Task models, which are purpose-built and optimized for specific functions like search, summarization, or classification. And then industry models, which are those vertical-specific AI models that are tailored for domains like finance, healthcare, manufacturing, like I mentioned earlier. And this model catalog makes it easier for you to discover and access and use the right model for your needs, whether you're building something from scratch or you're fine-tuning an existing one. And we're not going to go deep into fine-tuning today. We'll save that for a future webinar. The next is the seamless integration with developer tools. And you'll see Copilot Studio is right there. It's designed to work effortlessly with these tools that developers are already using. Copilot Studio for your low-code, natural language-driven workflow development. Visual Studio and GitHub for coding, version control, and continuous integration, continuous deployment. And the Azure AI Foundry SDK to interact with the services programmatically. And so those integrations help streamline the AI development workflow, and they speed up your model deployment while helping you maintain your code quality and traceability if you're building your agents inside AI Foundry as well. So it also offers these intelligent model capabilities, the Azure OpenAI for powerful generative AI capabilities, Azure AI Search to enable semantic and contextual search experiences, the Azure AI Agent Service for orchestrating multi-step reasoning and tool invocation. So you're building agents in AI Foundry. and the Azure AI Content Safety, which ensures outputs meet enterprise compliance and safety standards. And so those capabilities all enable you to build responsible, context-aware applications that are secure and production-ready. So down in the observability, it's observability is baked into Azure AI Foundry, forms the foundation of the service. And under the hood, it leverages a suite of intelligent service. I'm sorry, I got lost myself here a second. The platform covers that full AI lifecycle, offering built-in support for evaluation, customization, governance, and monitoring. And with observability at the core, it the centralized dashboards and telemetry, you gain visibility into the behavior of your models, operational health, and compliance metrics. So at a kind of a high level, the way the AI Foundry works is you create a hub, which is the top level workspace that manages projects, compute, security, and storage. And you create projects support that hub, which are the secure containers where you build, test, and deploy your AI apps. And we'll look at that in the demo. And then you can create connections to data sources, models, Azure OpenAI, and other services, AI services. And then there's a management center to control all of that stuff. So what value do you get by bringing in AI Foundry? And this is sort of the really why are we here? And out of the box, you get this access to a broad model catalog. So we might have heard that Foundry provides access to thousands of AI models. I think last time I looked, it was 11,095 models, and about 2,000 of them are available in Copilot Studio. So it includes OpenAI's large language models, specialized models from Microsoft and Hugging Face. At Build, we announced that Copilot Studio can tap into those about 1,900, 2,000 models in the Azure model catalog via Foundry integration. And so this means that if you need a particular AI capability like clinical summarization models that generate SOAP notes or risk classification for financial services, you could probably find it in Foundry. And rather than being limited to the default GPT-4 model for generative answers, you can bring your own model that better suits your domain. For example, a manufacturer might use a domain-specific model for technical troubleshooting. And that's kind of what I'm using in the demo here in a minute. And so Foundry's model catalog dramatically expands what your Copilot Studio agent can do. You can also do custom model fine-tuning. So that's one of the most powerful benefits, that the ability to fine-tune your models with enterprise data. And so think about Foundry allowing data scientists to start with a base model and then train it on that proprietary data to specialize it. So Copilot Studio now supports integrating those custom models. You can select a fine-tuned model as the agent's brain for certain tasks. It's a game changer for scenarios requiring deep domain knowledge, like that insurance company fine-tuning a claims Q&A model on its policy documents and then plugging that into a Copilot Studio agent. And customers benefit from that higher accuracy and relevancy of answers because the AI isn't just generic, trained on a large data set. It's tailored to your corpus and your terminology. And early adopters of this have told us that this reduces the amount of post-processing and manual overrides needed. The agent can sort of speak the company's language after fine-tuning. You get advanced RAG, retrieval and knowledge integration. The Azure AI Foundry includes vector search. It's a part of Azure AI services and vector indexes. Those capabilities, vector indexes and Azure AI Search, enhance your agent's ability to retrieve information. So in practice, this is the RAG pattern, combining search with generative AI. And with Foundry, you can create vector indices of your content, like documents and knowledge bases, enable semantic search and keyword search, and leverage your AI search, or your Azure AI Search index data from Foundry within Copilot Studio to power generative answers. This means that your agent can intelligently look up from your company's entire document store and provide grounded, up-to-date answers with citations. And that's what I'll demo. Without Foundry, your Copilot Studio agents can still use knowledge sources like SharePoint files and Dataverse. But with vector search, you can improve relevance significantly. You can also control the way that the files are chunked and ranked. And so you'll see this kind of as a big benefit for your knowledge-centric agent, like that internal policy agent that needs to search PDFs or a support agent that needs instant access to product manuals. And by integrating Foundry Search, you reduce hallucinations and improve answer accuracy because the generative model has provided the exact relevant context from the index. You also get enhanced language and speech support and other capabilities with the Azure AI services. You get, and I'll show the Azure AI services here in a minute, but there, I believe, are 10 that are available through AI Foundry. Things like natural language, speech, document processing, or document intelligence, face recognition, vision, and intent recognition, and all kinds of cool stuff like that. I'm really interested in the Azure AI language service and the cognitive services for language and the content understanding. It's pretty cool stuff. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then you get complex reasoning and workflows. So for some scenarios, you might need agents to perform some complex logical reasoning or multi-step workflows that are maybe beyond the default orchestration of Copilot Studio. And Azure AI Foundry offers an agent service, which allows you to build more complex agent behaviors like chaining multiple model calls or maintaining long-term memory. And by integrating that agent as a skill, Copilot Studio can benefit from that advanced logic. You can think of Foundry acting as an agent brain extension. Now, building agents in AI Foundry is a bit out of scope for our chat today. We're going to focus on bring your own model and bring your own index. But I'd love to jump into building agents with Foundry and using them in Copilot Studio at some point in the future. All right, so it's demo time. Let's take a look. So we want to bring your own model to Copilot Studio. I've created a project in Azure AI Foundry here called AI Webinar Demo, which has some useful information on the project page. First thing we'll do is go to the model catalog. There are many models, over 11,000 models in the Foundry model catalog. It could be a little overwhelming figuring out which model you want to use if you don't know coming in. So Foundry offers a few different things you can use to help you figure that out. The leaderboards show you which models are performing best across 4 different criteria, and you can browse the leaderboards to see more details about that. That can be helpful. You can kind of scroll through them if you want, and very handily at the top, or you can filter. So the first is collections. When you filter by collection, you can see Azure OpenAI, Microsoft, Meta, Mistral, NVIDIA, Cohere, Databricks, Snowflake, Hugging Face. You can filter by industry. You can filter by capabilities of the model. You can filter by deployment options, and very usefully by inference tasks. And not all inference tasks are available in Copilot Studio models, but you can do chat completion, environmental forecasting, image classification, protein design, summarization, text generation, translation, and so on. You can filter by fine-tuning tasks, and you can filter by licenses. So I know for this, I want to use 5.4, and I could see a couple of 5.4 models there, but not the one I'm looking for. So I'm just going to search for it, 5.4. And there it is for chat completion. So that takes me to the details page where I can read about its model architecture, what training data was used. I can look at benchmarks, any existing deployments in Azure AI Foundry and its license. You can see the supported languages with tons. You can look at its pricing information and its benchmarks, as well as the model ID, which is useful for using it in Agent SDK. So I'm going to go to the model and endpoints in Foundry, click Deploy Base Model, because this is how I'm going to deploy the 5.4 model. I'm going to search for it, and there we go. Some more information about it. Hit Confirm. I'm choosing to deploy serverless API. Agree and proceed. And I'll accept this. EastUS2, that's great. Hit Deploy. And my model is deployed. Great. So it's ready to use. So here we are in Copilot Studio. I have an agent called Marion, which answers questions about craftsman tools. And I've created a topic called Tool Information Topic. And it has a custom prompt. And the custom prompt is how I'm going to use the Foundry model. And right now it's using GPT-4 Mini. So it just takes an activity text, runs it through the model, and sends out a response. So I'm going to ask a question of the agent. How do I store a Craftsman 50280 bottle jack? It's using GPT-4 Mini trained on general knowledge, so I kind of expect the results to be, well, kind of general. And it returns useful information. Look, clean the jack, lower the jack, and so on. But I wonder what I could get with a different model. So now I want to switch to the 5.4 model, which may have some more information in it about how to store that Craftsman bottle jack. So I'm in the tool information prompt, click on the model, pick Azure AI Foundry. I'm going to connect the new model and enter the information about the model from Foundry. And now it's ready to go. I'm just confirming that 5.4 is there. Now we're ready to go. So I'll ask the question again, how do I store Craftsman 50280 bottle jack? And it looks like there's more information from the 5.4 model than there is from the GPT-4 Mini. And this information is really useful, but is it what I really need? If we look at the manual, it shows more information, how to store your jack, insert the rubber handle holder onto the top nut and depress the spring. And it's very specific to storing that particular bottle jack. So while this 5.4 model is great, it gave more information, what I really need is retrieval augmented generation. And we're going to do that now with Bring Your Own Index. So I'm back in Azure AI Foundry in my AI webinar demo project. And the first thing I need to do is add a model. So I'll go to Models and Endpoints. I'm going to pick Deploy Model. We did this earlier with 5.4. Pick a base model. I need an embedding model. So for this, I'm going to choose Text Embeddings ADA002, which is a great model for this scenario. So I'm just going to confirm and deploy the model with the default going to the same region as everything else I've done. So here's the information about the model. And now I need to add the data. Now for this demo, I'm going to add the data to AI Foundry. When you create an AI Foundry project, you get Azure Blob Storage with it. It deploys it to Azure. It's the Workspace Blob Store. And I've uploaded a bunch of Craftsman manuals, about a gigabyte of them, to Blob Storage. And so here they are. I downloaded these from the Internet Archive. So they're already in Blob Storage that Azure AI Foundry created for me. And I'm going to create this connection and choose that path and hit next, and then just name it manuals. And I'm doing this just to show you that you can add the data to the model here. And now I'm going to go in and add the index. And so I'm going to create a new index, and I'm going to choose my data in Azure AI Foundry. I could use connection directly to Blob Store. I'm going to pick manuals here. And now I need an Azure AI search service, and I don't have one yet. So I'm going to create a new AI search resource. So clicking that will take me to the Azure portal, and that's where I can create an Azure AI search service. So I entered in the information about it, and I'm accepting the defaults. And we'll just look at that deployment going. It doesn't take very long, it took about 20 seconds, I believe. So the deployment's in progress. All right, back to Azure AI Foundry. I'm going to connect to that resource, add a connection, copy and paste information that it requires about it, named it manuals vector, and it has the embedding model chosen for me because I only had that embedding model available in my models and endpoints. If I had multiple, then I would have had to pick it. So now I'm going to create the vector index, and this is going to index all of the files that I uploaded to that blob storage. And in this case, that took about 45 minutes, which really wasn't too bad for all of the chunking and ranking and filtering and stuff that it needed to do. So now it's done. I'm back in Copilot Studio. I'll go to the Knowledge tab in my Marion agent, click Add Knowledge. I'm picking Azure AI Search. Now I need to create a connection from Copilot Studio to Azure AI Search. I'm adding the endpoint URL and the admin key. Wait a little bit, and the connection is now live. I just need to wait for it to finalize everything, and then I can add it to the agent. Great, there it is. So I'll add the manuals vector to the agent, and I'm good to go with that. Awesome. So we'll just click into that and see what we can do here. I like to update the description just for a best practice. So it's about Craftsman tools, and I'm going to save that. So I'll ask the agent again, how do I store the bottle jack? Also, I disabled the topic with the custom prompt because I wanted to use the knowledge source with the text embedding. And look at that, the results are much different. This looks like it matches what's in the manual. Let's take a look. Yep. And it matches what's in the manual, which is what I expected. And also includes some maintenance tips that it found in the manual as well. Very, very useful. And that's bring your own index with Azure AI Foundry and Copilot Studio. All right. I hope the audio worked on that and everybody enjoyed that demo. Um, the first time that I indexed all those documents, it took 4 hours. So the second time, I went ahead and chose a slightly more powerful compute resource. So, all right. So I hope that you enjoyed the demo. As you can see, I focused on bring your own model and using 5.4. We could have used anything, Grok, tons and tons of choices, and you can see some different results from that. And so choosing the model it's like we do have to sometimes do some work to think about what am I trying to accomplish with this? I don't necessarily want to go into Foundry and think, I wonder what model I should use, with a blank slate, maybe for experimenting. But for your scenario and for your need, some work is done is necessary to figure out which model you need. Now, here's an interesting thing too. About 10, 12 years ago, I took Andrew Ng's machine learning course on Coursera. And this is back when machine learning was just really starting to enter the public consciousness and people were just moving to the cloud, and it's like a lifetime ago. And so we learned a lot about machine learning models and how they work and training them and so on. And, now all these years later, things like Hugging Face and Mistral and Grok 3 and Desert Decoder, all these different models, people just talk about them in polite conversation. Like I was at a birthday party not too long ago and people were talking about Llama and these aren't even people in the industry. So the models have entered the public consciousness. They are a fact of life. And I think as time goes by, we'll start to get just a kind of more of a cultural understanding of what the different models apply to and how we use them. So, with all these different models for specialized tasks, and this, what I have here on the slide is just a selection. There are tons. And based on what you need to do, you can ask a large language model which model that you should use. You can figure out what's specific for your industry or for your needs. So there are about 1,900 models available to Copilot Studio from Azure AI Foundry for more specialized tasks, advanced data processing for complex documents and information, custom model training for industry-specific needs like we talked about, and of course, different ways for you to find the model that's right for you in AI Foundry, including that leaderboard and filtering. So the Azure AI services I've got them listed out here. These are available to you as well through AI Foundry. You can call these APIs directly, or you can add them as connections in Foundry and make them part of your managed resource in your project. And these offer a lot of powerful capabilities for bringing more AI to your agent. So we just looked at Azure AI Search with creating an index, and Azure OpenAI, of course, with all of its GPT and DALL-E models. But you can do things like analyze content in images and videos. You can add OCR capabilities with the model. You can do speech to text and text to speech and speaker recognition, analyze natural language text and do entity extraction. There's a ton of stuff that you can do with the Azure AI services that can bring even more intelligence and knowledge and power to your Copilot Studio agent. So let's cover some extension scenario examples. And these are, again, derived from some customer experiences. And I think that I'd like to know how they resonate with you. So you can answer in the chat, or when we're done with the presentation, we can talk about the extension scenarios that you're planning for your own organization or that you're interested in. So the first one is, of course, the classic grounding with proprietary or regulated data. So this scenario is the healthcare provider is building Copilot Studio agent to help doctors retrieve patient records. Maybe they want the agent to be an AI UI for their electronic health record application. So why extend in this scenario? Fine-tuned model. So creating a fine-tuned language model that understands the domain-specific terminology and respects privacy constraints. And so even within the medical profession, and within specializations and within subspecializations, there are all kinds of terminology and jargon and such that's very specific to that field that is also related to the where that doctor practices or where that hospital is in the world. So there's being able to fine tune the model on the terminology and such that while respecting the privacy constraints that are applicable in that country, like HIPAA here in the United States. And so what are the benefits of that with AI Foundry? You get the secure containerized deployment of fine-tuned models on isolated infrastructure. So the next is multilingual support with localization. If you think about, in this example, a global retailer needs that internal support agent that can speak multiple languages and understands regional and dialectal nuances. And as a linguistics major, this is super interesting to me. So why extend with Azure AI Foundry? Bring your own model. Copilot Studio does support multilingual prompts and translation out of the box, but with AI Foundry, you can bring your own models and fine-tune OpenAI models on locale-specific corpora that are specific to your needs. And I was chatting with somebody about this recently. There are regional dialects within countries, like in Spain, and Brazilian Portuguese is different from Portugal Portuguese, and in Japanese, there are different levels of formality, and these are things that you can bake into your agent with multilingual support and localization and model fine tuning. So, what are the benefits of extending with AI Foundry in this scenario? Improved intent recognition, disambiguation, and fluency in regional variants. You get better understanding of tone, phrasing, and you can manage local user expectations and communicate with users in the ways that work best for them. Document understanding in RAG, this is another key scenario. And this one, the classic financial services firm needs an agent that can answer investment policy questions based on their internal documents. In this example, PDFs and Excel. Why extend? Bring your own index. Plug in your own vector store, embedding model, and grounding pipeline. You can customize how the documents are chunked, filtered, and ranked. And this is a big, big use case. And the benefits of this one are you're making Copilot Studio's generative answers more accurate and more grounded with the RAG pipelines in AI Foundry. And the Azure AI Search and in Azure Blob Storage, you can store tremendous amounts of documents. So when you extend, what gets better? Well, response quality. You can get more accurate and relevant answers from your agents. With capability breadth, you can handle more complex scenarios. And business value, you can solve problems that weren't possible to solve before. And this is your mileage may vary. What stays the same when you extend with AI Foundry? You have the same user interface, the same familiar Copilot Studio experience. And if you notice in the demo, AI Foundry is a UI for interacting with all the different services, and it's point and click, and you can kind of think of it as a low-code environment in its own right. We didn't need to write any code to make bring your own model or bring your own index work. You can, and there's in some cases I like to think of it as assembling code to extend, because you could get the structure of the code out of the box and then just add in the specific keys and API calls that you need. It's still fairly low code, but you can stay in Copilot Studio for the most part and keep that familiar experience. There are no disruption to your current processes and existing workflows. Those stay the same. And people keep using what they know. If you're in a team where you've got a bunch of folks, a bunch of makers creating agents with Copilot Studio, and you have a separate team that's managing Azure, you can work with that team managing Azure and communicate with them about what you need based on how you understand what models you want and so on. And they can make those things available to you in Copilot Studio. And the governance model, you have the same management and oversight. So at a high level, if we think about what your Copilot Studio agent extension journey with AI Foundry would be, you start with your current Studio, your current Copilot Studio agent. You think about what you want to enhance. Why are you extending it, and what AI Foundry capabilities that would work for your scenarios and architecture needs, and you can prioritize them. Use gap analysis to figure out. Well, in this case, I think bringing a custom model and bringing a Foundry model and a custom prompt works best for this one. And then over time, increase that sophistication. As you bring more models, as you create vector indexes, as new features come out that improves integration between AI Foundry and Copilot Studio, you could take advantage of that. And then you scale with the enterprise-wide intelligent agents. So I'll amend my principle that I started with. Start with Copilot Studio and extend with Azure AI when it makes sense. So while I talked about all the things that you can do, with Azure AI Foundry and Copilot Studio, that doesn't mean you have to. If you can accomplish what you need to accomplish in Copilot Studio, you can do that. You don't have to extend with Azure AI Foundry, but sometimes it gives you that extra gear when that's what you needed, and that's what I want to make clear. Like, you don't have to extend with Azure AI Foundry. Copilot Studio is fantastic out of the box, and we're adding new things to it every day. So I hope that you found this information super useful. Ashley, do you want to take over?